Welcome back to Overtime here on WOTM. We'll close up our program with a very, very, very special note, and we'll have a small bit today. We'll have a lot more coming up tomorrow. One of the things in Mark's background is he worked at ESPN, kind of almost at the grassroots level, in a lot of ways as it relates to the research. And he's been able to meet up with a lot of people, guys like Dick Vitale, Digger Phelps, and names that you've come to know and love in the college basketball world, Jay Billis, and several others. And another friend of yours from your ESPN days is Howie Schwab. A lot of people might remember the show Stump the Schwab. It was a very popular show. Stuart Scott, the late, great Stuart Scott, was a part of that program as well. Before we get into your conversation with him today, number one, talk about your days at ESPN with guys like Howie Schwab and some of the other notable personalities that resonate with people across the country.
I remember I met Howie like one of my first weeks there, and Howie's a nondescript guy. You look at him and you think, oh, he's just an average but Howie's a really nice guy. And he's been there, he was there at the very beginning. He was there since 1979. So he's a legend there. There were certain guys, I know Bill Pito was another guy, probably the most quoted guy ever at ESPN, that just had legendary status. Howie was one of those. He was the original researcher. Back when there was no researcher, Howie's the one who started the whole department. And then he was the manager, and then he became like a VP, and then he just kind of, him and Dick really worked together on a lot of different things. Howie was always there during NCAA tournament time. He was always there during championship week, which was absolute chaos. You know, just this big mess. And Howie was always there when you needed someone. Like, he'd seen everything. There was, I remember, like, if you're in the studio and you're not used to how things go, you can get overwhelmed by the situation. Howie was just like, yeah, okay. You know, like everything was so like matter of fact. Yeah, let me call this guy. I got to call. You know, I got to call press row. I got to get together. You know, and everything he did and everything was flawless. And he made you really relax. That's what I really appreciated about him. Because you could have people that are very high strung with producers or anchors, and Howie was a guy that always really helped you put things in perspective. You felt good. You knew when he was there that everything was going to go smooth because you at least have someone to answer the questions you couldn't answer.
Exactly. And then what ESPN ended up doing, some of the show producers had a great ideas. Hey, let's put that knowledge in front of the camera. And ever since then, I think we're starting to see a surgence of that. You're starting to see guys like Chris Felica, the Bears, another good friend of yours at ESPN. A lot of the guys that do a great job of diving into the numbers and doing a great job of telling the game within the game, the story within the story. They're now kind of the front-facing people in the industry overall, and especially at ESPN. I don't know about you, but I credit a lot of that to Howie Schwab and the success of Stump the Schwab.
Yeah, well, I think like you have guys like Keith Lipscomb is a guy that knew so much about everything. He could break down just about every team in the Southern Conference and their starting five. Felica was a guy who knows so much about college football, probably more than anybody alive, and he also knows about horse racing too. So you could break down the mother. His mother was a mother, I think, came from Felica. And like there's Sanford Appella guys over at MLB.com, Keith Hawkins, Chris Lees, Jeff Bennett. There's so many guys that really knew sports very well. Guys you would have conversations would be like, geez, I thought I knew something. And then you run into these guys, and they can be very specific. John Zoney is another guy that's like a computer, like a Rain Man type. So I think just Howie's ability to have that put well on TV, and I think it was kind of fun when you got to watch him, and use his knowledge. Especially like Stuart Scott was a guy that always took great notes. Everything you ever gave Stuart Scott, he'd find a way to use. Stuart Scott's highlights were the most educational highlights because he took everything that the researcher, Todd Snyder was his researcher, was a guy, another great guy who knows a lot. And Todd would give him so many tidbits, and Stuart would find a way to get him in the highlights. And that was just a credit to Stuart, who I love dearly, I miss dearly, was one of the great anchors of his time. And he had a lot of fun with Howie with this show, too.
Exactly. And he really kind of changed the game as it relates to how this business operates in the highlight culture that we have seen so far, and kind of took it to the next level. We'll have so much more coming up tomorrow. We want to give you a sneak preview tonight. Mark and Howie talked about the game last night and the tournament overall. Here's their conversation from earlier today.
Howie, how are you doing tonight?
Doing great, Mark. Good to be with you. And last night was pretty amazing. Baylor just outplayed Gonzaga, period. I mean, Gonzaga had a great season, was 31-0 going into the game. Everyone talking about being the next Indiana of 76 going undefeated. Didn't happen because Baylor jumped out right at the start of the game. And, it's interesting. Gonzaga's biggest deficit against UCLA in a great game was 6 points. Well, Baylor led 7-0 thanks to Jared Butler stepping up and being hot early. And the next thing you know, it's 29-10, and forget it. It's over. It was a great tournament. What was great about the tournament is we had a tournament.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Because last year we didn't. And it was terrible sitting here just saying, wow, I wish I could have seen Florida State, or I could have seen Seton Hall, or I could have seen Michigan State or whomever. It was wide open. And this year, the tournament, people say Baylor Gonzaga 1-2 finals, great. But hey, you had a 15th seed in the Sweet 16. You had an 11th seed in the Final Four. Just some fun things happened. A 12th seed in the Elite Eight.
Yep.
Only the second time ever.
We'll have a lot more from Howie Schwab coming up tomorrow. Mark's conversation with him yesterday. Special thanks to him. He's down in Sunshine State over in Florida. Took some time out to talk about not only the NCAA tournament, but this year's field, how basketball, as it was in this entire tournament, really came out. And then also some time about their time at ESPN. You certainly don't want to miss that. We'll have that coming up tomorrow night on our program on Overtime. That is it for our show tonight. We thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you again tomorrow night.